The November 29th, 2017 Conservation Commission meeting will come to order. Calling the meeting to order, the first item on the agenda will be the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you all for participating. We're going to, do we have minutes ready to go, Jen?
Yep.
Have they been reviewed?
Yes, by Lou and Kale, who was at the last meeting.
Okay.
I move that we adopt the minutes from the November 15th meeting.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. We'll move right to the notice of intent. 242-1719 Mass Ave at Chickering Road, Mass DOT. That has been requested to be continued to December 13th, 2017.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second to continue. Any discussion? None. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous. So that one stands continued. If anybody's here for that one, it will not be held tonight. 242-1723, lots 2 and 3, Kelsey Lane, Belford Construction, continued from November 15th. Mr. Osgood.
Good evening. Ben Osgood, Jr., Ranger Engineering and Design. We were here last week. I gave a brief presentation. This is a buffer zone project. There's an isolated wetland on the east side of the property. It's off property. And there is a bordering vegetated wetland on the west side. It has a vernal pool within it. So we've met the 50-foot no build, 50-foot no disturb, 75-foot no build to the westerly wetland. We're much further than the 25 and 50 on the isolated wetland. So it's basically a buffer zone project. So happy to answer any questions. The board didn't have any last week. I think we were waiting for a DEP number, which has been issued.
Yep, and the discussion that I watched in the video was that I had just mentioned that this is a lot abutting the state forest and a lot of local trails. So I had talked with Mr. Osgood about flagging some of the deciduous hardwoods. He's correct in that what he said at the meeting was that there is a lot of pine out there, but there are plenty of oaks too. So I have drafted an order of conditions for this, and if you concur that they would flag some of the upland hardwoods and try to leave some cover on the lot where, because all the trees aren't surveyed in with the survey plan, it's impossible to locate them on the plan per se. Not impossible, but onerous.
As a pre-construction, just to verify whether they have to come down on...
What they can save. Okay. You know, if a few trees along the drive, maybe. We've done this, they did this out on 1679 Osgood, that project that came in off of Bradford Street. They had big, you know, they left some nice clumps and stands of trees that wouldn't interfere with houses or septic systems or that sort of thing. So that was one condition.
Yeah, and just to... Mark Ray is the builder in this project, Belford Construction, and he doesn't have any problem saving trees. We just don't want to work around a tree that's going to have no root system left and it's going to fall down. So as long as we can keep that in mind, especially along the sides of the property, I mean, we always try to keep trees along the sides. Coming up through in the front, there's 2 driveways, there's 2 rain gardens, there's water, there's sewer, there's electric. It's going to be difficult in the front area. And then the other spot that might be an area is kind of where the crook in the lot line is, where the soil stockpile is. Maybe there's some trees in there we can save, but I don't want to give the impression that we're going to be saving a ton of trees all around the lot. I mean, we'll do what we can.
Yeah, I mean, there's some, I was mostly concerned with, you know, between the, you know, the various lots and, you know, I wasn't particularly concerned that, you know, they'd be saved between the driveways per se.
Right,
or
right.
I mean, there's got to be a couple hardwoods in there, given that the driveways are so long. I mean, the ideal time to have done this would have been when you were in the planning board process, but now that we're beyond that,
there's minimal regrading in here either, so there's not like there's a lot of cutting and filling going on.
Right, there's not a ton of...
But the rain gardens are going to get down into
right.
root structures.
And that's why I say, in the front, there's not a lot we can do, but maybe from, say, the back of, I think it's lot 2, from the kind of the side of that house, you know, the south side of that house back between, you know, the house that's on lot 1, there may be an opportunity to leave some clumps of trees, and that would be advantageous. to keep a divide between the two homes. So, you know, we'll do what we can. We can go out and stake the foundations and flag any trees we think we can keep before we start doing the cutting.
So kind of, some other things that didn't get discussed at the last meeting that should be discussed, given that this is a new lot, the commission almost always requires that the no disturb zone be monumented. The standard is the 2x2 dry laid field stone wall, which is already out there in some capacity. But I think the commission would want to see that at the 50 behind the house on lot 2.
Okay. Yep.
And the last is, I included the order of conditions, in the order of conditions, the planning board's condition, just to be consistent about the soil testing in the rain garden areas, to make sure they meet the 2 feet to groundwater separation, and, you know, they have suitable soils. They could tweak them a little. I'm assuming there's sand out there, given what I've seen on the other lots, but still wanna, you don't want to put something in that's supposed to be serving to mitigate for these really long driveways and then have it, you know, they're on the lowest points at the lot, so it's kind of.
The location of the rain gardens isn't fixed?
Well, I mean, it's fixed, but, I mean, soil testing should confirm that they're going to function.
Did they? I don't
And
know,
that
the
planning board required it, so.
But didn't they have test pits on the plan?
The test pits weren't, it says they shall be done and that they shall be shown on the plan. I'm not requiring that they be shown, I just
Right.
want to see the results.
But were they done? Do you have the plan? Do you have the PDF of the plan? We could just,
The planning board plan?
right. Because I did make that a part of this order of conditions, is the plans.
Are you saying you did do test pits? And
No,
you-
so what happened here, this was done by Christensen and Sergi back in 2009.
The original subdivision.
7 or 9. And I believe they did test pits between the time it was approved and the time the plan was signed.
Oh, it
It
says-
was a condition of the approval, but I believe it was a condition that was one of the
It's like a pre-construction condition.
Right.
I
thought it
don't
was a-
see them shown
That sounds like old information to me. Ben.
here.
Right, I mean, we can redo them, I don't
I
have a
mean, it
problem.
probably should have been refreshed in some way. Wouldn't
I
you
didn't
think?
see them as part of the filing in the planning board, and I don't,
Okay.
oh, actually, there are 2 test pits, there they are.
Right,
What I got was the recorded plan with the decision recorded on it.
right.
So if there's test pit information, I mean, we haven't approved the order of conditions, we can revise this to say that the information will be provided. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, either new test pits or existing test pit information provided, I think. I know it's somewhere here, I just,
Well, maybe the planning board has it.
Right, they
I
did
asked them
them.
if they wanted me to include that condition,
Right.
so.
but that's why I think it was a pre-signature condition,
Okay.
so.
Okay. Well,
Joe, you good?
Thanks for pointing
You
that
got-
out.
Deb,
Okay, so Jen, permanent monumentation will be included in the order of conditions.
I think we just discussed that, and
Yeah,
we're
right.
okay with that.
I'm just kind of like,
Yep.
the test pits are going to be done. Also, do you have a new O&M plan?
Yep, Mr. Osgood submitted that, it's in the file, referenced in the order of conditions, and will be recorded with it.
Okay, and is the rain plan O&M separate from the general O&M?
There isn't a general O&M, there's only the rain garden
Only the
O&M.
rain garden, okay. And, okay, that's it for me.
you good? Anything else, Jen? Any abutters present to this project that want to be heard? So the record will reflect no butters answered. You ready to close?
I'm good.
You recommend closing?
Closing and issuing.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second to close an issue in 21 days or less. Any discussion? There is none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. You stand closed.
Great, thank you.
Two 242-1721, 562 Boxford Street. Serious development. This is continued from November 15th.
So you have a letter from Christensen and Sergi in front of you that details the changes that were made since the last meeting. In watching the hearing, there was some discussion about vernal pool, ephemeral pool habitat. So the way ephemeral pool habitat works is the pool is delineated, often it lies within BVW and is not the entire BVW. I went out and delineated a portion of this pool. It's on the plan now, and
You delineated that recently or part of the original
like
file?
this week,
Okay, good.
because it hadn't been delineated as part of the Wellington Woods.
That was an argument at the last meeting.
Right. They were right that the wetland line on that side of the house, that channel-like portion of it had been delineated. But as I pointed out, you know, often there are changes. We had a lot of blowdown at that Halloween storm. There was a brush pile. You know, it was one flag. They have changed it on the plan, but they were correct about that. The ephemeral pool habitat extends within the buffer zone 100 feet from the edge of that pool. So they have since revised the plan where the lot is within 100 feet of that pool and there is BVW. The extended buffer zones, the 50-75, comes out from the edge of BVW, even though the vernal pool or the ephemeral pool is farther back on the lot. Once you get 100 feet away from the edge of the ephemeral pool, any BVW that remains goes back to having the 25-50.
That's what we were unclear of the last meeting.
Right.
Thank you.
So they are showing now at the front corner of the lot, and I'm sure we can run through that on the plan here, but there is now a portion of the lot that's 25-50. The other part that needed clarification from the last hearing was you all said we needed to hear from the Board of Health about the waiver. The waiver of the 100-foot from an ephemeral pool is in our bylaw, not theirs. So generally, if we're going to waive 100 feet, installation of a septic system within 100 feet and it's just BVW, it is a Board of Health requirement to waive it. When it's within 100 feet of an ephemeral pool, it's your requirement to waive it. It's in our bylaw then. So with that,
So my name is TJ Melvin. I'm with Christensen and Surgery here on behalf of the applicant for the project at 562 Boxford Street. As Jennifer said, that we had walked the site, I believe it was yesterday, and just pulled some quick ties to get a rough idea of where the ephemeral pool was. It did still affect the house. It's still within the 75-foot no build. The portion along this corner of the site where the two red lines are here show where it goes back to the original 25-foot no disturb and 50-foot no build. So the purpose of the project is to tear down an existing house. It's about 30 feet off of the wetland, and the existing septic system is about 19 feet off the wetland. The applicant's looking to build a single-family house. Unfortunately, due to the location of the wetland and the zoning setbacks, we really don't have much of an option to put it outside of the 75-foot no build. It's actually within the 50-foot as well. We have the house proposed 44 feet off the wetland line, and the septic system is about 51 feet to the reserve and 55 to the primary. There's an existing well on site, which also restricted a little bit of where we could test. Groundwater is kind of high, so kind of get a mounding effect, and putting it in the front yard makes it a little difficult if we were to re-drill a well. We do have a foundation drain proposed along the driveway, and we have the siltation barrier just right up to the base of the grading for the septic system and up to the 25-foot no disturb along the portion of the house. As we have it designed now, we will need a variance from Board of Appeals, one for a non-conforming lot issue and contiguous buildable area, but we're also looking to reduce the setback to 20 feet to be able to construct the house as we have it shown.
have you applied for those yet?
We have not.
Okay.
We were waiting, I guess we were going to apply. Our biggest concern was because the Conservation Commission has such a large jurisdiction over this lot, we thought it would be better to first discuss with Conservation.
It's true, but the Wetlands Protection Act requires that you have applied for all necessary or all available permits prior to filing with the commission. I wasn't aware of that because you hadn't alerted anybody to it. So this isn't closing anyway, but you need to get that filing in ASAP.
Yeah, we were trying to, last meeting, we were trying to get an idea of the sense of the commission's response, because we were going to try to get onto the December hearing. But like I said, where there's so much, I mean, we're in the no build and no disturb. We wanted to get a feel for what.
Right, just so you know, for future filings, it's a requirement of the Wetlands Protection Act that you at least file for those permits. You don't have to obtain them, but you do have to file for them.
Okay. So that's.
In the monumentation you proposed is post and marker?
Yeah, so I know we talked about doing the wall. We could if that's what the commission would prefer. There is, as we talked about on site, there was a large portion of stone walls available, but the majority of them fall within the wetland. So trying to reuse it, as we talked about, wouldn't really provide enough of the monumentation. We're open to switching to that if that's what the commission would prefer.
So just,
I have not received comments from Natural Heritage, so I'm assuming you haven't either?
No, I tried to call them the past couple days and I haven't heard back.
do you have anything else before we tackle it up here?
Nope.
Mr. Lynch?
Well, it's hard to keep it in order because of the fact that one of the pivotal points of the whole discussion of applying for permits ahead of time is there's a variance required for both zoning and a variance required from us. We call them waivers, but essentially it's a variance. And the reality is they're looking for some considerable waivers on our behalf, which I guess we can assist them in the zoning endeavor by saying that I'm not about to waive on the, let's look at this, at this point, none of the waivers, any of them. Waiver of the septic system to the ephemeral pool is probably the one that I think to find to be least onerous, but the waiver of the no build to the house down to 44 feet is, I just think coming out of the gate is not possible.
Well, they, I mean, I think their argument, and there is an alternatives analysis that was provided at the last meeting, is that the existing house was closer, so they're improving existing conditions. Was it the one flag change that put this, because it was outside the 50?
It was, yeah. The one flag change put it within the 50-foot.
So that one flag change did alter where the stands, they were designing originally to the edge of the ephemeral pool habitat no disturb zone. And when I changed the flag, that altered this. Again, it's sort of, when you go out there, it's kind of a carved out area of between two flags that wasn't captured by the original flagging.
I actually also have a plan showing the possible buildable area on the site.
Yeah.
You just have that little, I see the little kink in the line that, I think we've lost the plan feed to the public.
That's because TJ's showing a plan that shows buildable area on the lot.
Okay.
I
There it
submitted
is.
this to you as well. This darker area here, I'm not sure if it's visible from there, but that's the only buildable area outside of the 75-foot no build and within the zoning setbacks. As you can see, it's a really small, narrow area.
So as you see the need to go to zoning, it's only because of the contiguous buildable upland area?
So it's a non-conforming lot due to lot area and contiguous.
They created this
buildable
lot,
area.
though. So this went to the zoning board of appeals to create the lot because the lot didn't conform. It wasn't like...
This was part of the larger tract, and they carved this out.
No, this wasn't. So this was an existing lot that had a very, it was kind of like a, triangular piece, and it had a very narrow strip that on Joyce Bradshaw's land. There's those two houses that are separate from Wellington Woods that are brand new on Boxford Street. This lot's driveway cut across the front of the second of those lots. So they did like a land swap and gave them more land to the rear of the property. And at the time, they were also trying to give them more of the wetland, which I interceded and said, you've got to leave them something when they come back to rebuild this thing that is going to let them build. And so I'm not saying this is the lot I would have approved, but I made them put more upland onto the left side of the lot at that time so that they could at least reconstruct the driveway without violating the no build, no disturb zone. So there is history with the zoning board with this lot already.
Yeah, I believe it was a non-conforming lot before it was changed as well.
Like, I can't imagine the one before.
If I can get my bearing straight then. So this new lot doesn't meet the 50-foot no-build to the house only because of, not because, but I shouldn't say only, but because of a flag change that resulted in this irregular kink in the line.
Right.
That made it that 6 feet closer. And that even at that, this proposed house that's replacing one that's going to be demolished is actually more compliant. More conforming than the one that's out there now.
Yeah, it's about 14 feet further from the wetlands than the existing houses.
And there's no other wetlands areas further to the west that we're, by any of these changes, we're compromising habitat or connectivity?
I mean, is there, given that the ZBA approved the non-conforming lot, is there any chance you could shift the whole thing over 6 feet and violate the side setback to get out of the wetland no disturb zone?
That's exactly why sometimes we've held the ground on applying for all permits prior to coming to us, formally. I think it was Glenwood. There's one down off of Mass Ave, not too long ago, maybe 15 years ago, that we did just that, and there was no way they were, they were going to get a variance until we said, there's no way you're going to get a waiver from us, and lo and behold, that became the basis to get the variance, and they got it. And as a result, they were able to pull it up, minimize the front yard setback, and stay away from the wetland, and it worked. So I think we might be solidifying a hardship by simply saying, comply with the no build.
Well, you also did it to, again, not as non-conforming as this, but 271 Stevens Street just got issued requiring them to be out of the no-build.
I was just going to comment on that.
So I'm all set for now.
We actually, our waivers, I've never seen a waiver apply to a newly created lot with a newly created hardship. When we've applied waivers, we've always done it on existing conditions. I understand there's a house there, but the lot lines are new, right?
Correct, and that's why I think if their zoning board approve, again, they're never going to get out of the no-build zone. This lot's undevelopable if we require them to be out of the no-build zone. So we're still going to grant a waiver. It would just not be a waiver of the no-disturb zone.
It's not a non-buildable lot if they can get relief at ZBA.
They can't, regardless of whether they get relief at ZBA, requiring this to be outside the no-build zone is not feasible. 100% not. It would render this lot unbuildable.
No, but what I'm seeing is if we're down to 44, following your point, if they shifted it to the west 6 feet, and the zoning board
They'd
would
be
have
outside of the
granted,
no-disturb zone.
which is fine.
That's what
Right.
I'm saying.
It's still not the no-build zone. That's what I'm saying.
I see.
It's still going to be a waiver. I just didn't want that to get missed.
And the location of the house is actually already requesting a 10-foot reduction in side setback from the zoning board, as we have it now.
So now it's just a few more feet.
Let me say that differently, make sure I'm understanding it. By getting that, if they were to shift it 6 feet to the west, they would be meeting a 50-foot no-build to the BBW, but not to the ephemeral pool.
Pool habitat, correct.
Okay, and I'm okay with at least, I mean, they need to give me at least that.
Right.
And we're not getting anything at this point. And there's already lawn area out there, so impacts on habitat to the ephemeral pool, I'm going to leave that up to natural heritage, but I can't imagine they could be any greater by that proposal than what's there now.
Natural Heritage isn't going to comment on the ephemeral pool. We could ask them, like we did with Wellington, to certify this as a vernal pool, but currently it doesn't even, it's not even listed, because of the tree cover over it, is not shown on the aerial maps listing potential vernal pools. Gotcha. Natural Heritage is going to comment on the fact that this is blanding turtle habitat, as they did with all of Wellington. There's a lot of protected resource area actually on Wellington Woods for the habitat.
Just to clarify, only a portion of the site is within natural heritage. When we walked up that stone wall, the old property line is that stone wall that we saw?
The back part, yeah.
Yep. So like where the septic system is the portion of the site that falls within natural heritage.
But also the wetland aspect of it too.
Yep. Yeah. But just like the portion of the house, I guess I just wanted to clarify that section is not within natural heritage other than the ephemeral pool.
So not so much of a comment as a question as it is a comment that I'd like to see them at least attempt the sideline setback variance by shifting it over to give us at least the 50-foot no build to the BVW, knowing that we never get setback to the ephemeral pool line. I'd like to see them do that. Everything else I'm really okay with.
I'm gonna wait till everybody speaks here.
Okay, I have no questions.
No questions. Doug?
I have no questions.
So, TJ, you kind of brought us a hot potato here.
Yeah.
You know, we try to help out, we really do. In this case here, the no-build zone is really the no-build zone, and I understand we have a non-compliant existing house there now, I get it. But if we allow you to knock it down and go non-compliant on a new house, we're throwing our bylaw out the window.
Yeah, and that was kind of why at the last meeting, I brought up changing that flag, because I knew that, we were so close, I knew any change to that
I
line
understand.
would.
The only other thing you can do, well, I would recommend that you continue and go back to the drawing board.
Okay.
I don't recommend asking us to close it.
Yep.
That would be my humble opinion to you. Are there any abutters here that want to be heard on this?
TJ, I just note.
No abutters answer, just so.
Okay.
Okay.
I would just note, too, that your 50 and 75 should go away when you move to the 25-50. See how they kind of continue around in like a
Yeah.
semicircle? They shouldn't be there. They because it's only parallel to the wetland line that they exist.
Yeah, I did it that way only to clarify it with the colors. I didn't
Okay.
want to try to call it a 50/25 foot no
Gotcha.
disturb. So I left it that way just to.
And I guess just for his knowledge going forward, are you fine with the posts and markers on this lot, or do you want to see a wall?
If we're looking to waive anything.
We're not anywhere near that discussion.
Yeah.
We're not even on the same page.
Okay. Well, I mean, it is, that's another aspect of this is, given that there's no lot room per se for having a yard or anything, they're proposing monumenting a 25, not a 50.
Okay, but
I'm not
we're not.
going to speak for a colleague
Yeah,
who's
yeah.
not at the table
We're-
tonight, but on a fully compliant lot,
Yeah.
meeting all of the setbacks, there are some members of this commission who would not waive a wall, period. In this instance,
Again-
I think it's even,
I think this lot deserves comparison to some other things that we've approved. The first that comes to mind, and it may have been a Christensen and Sergi project, I believe it is, it's 273 Berry Street. This is not Stack's lot. This is the one next door where there was an ephemeral pool out back as well, and there was an existing house on the lot. It knocked down. They maintained a 50-foot no-build and a 25-foot no-disturb, even though there were bigger buffer zones on the property.
So there may be some alternatives available to TJ that he may not be aware of right now or hasn't expressed to us. I strongly recommend that you just go back to the drawing board and give it another look. Don't let us vote on anything right now. Just continue it and try to make it a better project, and I think you probably can.
Okay. Just to clarify, so is the house within the 50-foot, obviously is the biggest issue?
Yeah.
As far as the 50 within the septic system?
The house is the problem.
Okay, so that's the only thing. If we could keep that out of the 50-foot no build.
Can you fix that? If you can do that, then we got something to talk about.
Yeah, I can try to work on that.
All right, so
Okay.
what do you want, 2 weeks, 4 weeks? What do you need?
I think you need to get your application in with the ZBA before
Yep.
we move forward, just to make this compliant with the Wetlands Protection Act.
Do you have one meeting in December or two?
One. It's January 10th, I think?
Why don't we, listen, let's continue them to the December meeting. If you can't make it, just call Jen, tell you can't make it.
Okay.
We'll give you an option, okay?
That's
So
December 13th.
Okay.
I'm looking for a motion to continue.
do you have any questions?
So moved.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Questions, comments? None. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. We'll see you at the next meeting.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, TJ.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going in order. 242, 1722, 173 Campbell Road. This is also continued from November 15th.
So, at the last meeting, you asked Jonathan to get a survey plan, which he received from Neve Moore within the last couple days, right? Or no, today. Somebody sent me a plan. I can't remember if it was, yeah. So this is a brand-new plan showing what you had received a sketch plan of previously.
Can you just, for the sake of everybody here, can you just give a quick 30-second review of what the project is?
It's
What are we asking for here?
It's a small addition for a master bathroom, I believe,
Yeah,
on the
it's
house.
just the addition of a master bathroom to a
Okay.
master
An
bedroom.
addition of a master bathroom, okay, good.
It's in the area of where there was an existing deck, which has been taken off the house. As you look at the house, the dwelling to the right of the stairs is an addition you allowed in 2004, I believe. It has a certificate of compliance. So just as reference, the wetland line changed, but not markedly. You can see the addition is pretty much right at the 50-foot no build zone. And the existing garage was also an addition under a prior order of conditions. The only other thing we noticed on the lot during a site visit is if you go out back and behind some shrubs that are out there, there's a really nice brush pile, quite large. It's historic, and some portions of that brush pile have trees growing out of it. So I have photos of that. But other than that, I don't have a problem. Just so you understand too, because I know this has kind of been a big learning curve. Do you have copies of that plan for me, by the way?
I do, yeah.
Maybe more and bring full size, because all I have are the little ones I printed.
Okay. Do you
We
want them?
typically require, at least
I
one. I
understand.
usually two full-size plans.
We need record drawings for our file.
Sure, no
So that
problem.
when we have our order of conditions drafted, if you get your order of conditions, the record drawing is part of it.
Right,
It's got to be a compliant record drawing. 20 scale would be nice.
okay.
The brush pile at the back with the
Yeah.
trees growing out of it is
Yeah.
probably not going to be removed, but there's a bigger sort of
Sure.
bush area.
Is it all brush, or is there tractors and
No,
stuff
it's
in it?
all brush.
All right, so what do you want, Jen? What do you need to get this closed? Do you
So at
have
the
a-
last meeting, what was at issue is we had just a sketch. We had what we thought to be a relatively accurate sketch of where the wetland line was and some reference lines of how far back this addition would be, but they were close, and too close for comfort without actually having a survey, and there was no survey. So really what was at issue was only the accuracy of the information, but not so much the project itself. But now having a drawing in front of us that surveys in a wetland line and shows a setback from that line greater than 50 feet, I think my issues went away.
Right. So having gotten the plans so late, I was not able to draft an order of conditions. So what happens now is they can close the public hearing,
Okay.
but they can't issue an order of conditions until their next meeting. You don't need to be present at that meeting, but it's that point that you would get issued the document that is the permit.
Okay.
Do you have any questions of us?
I don't think so.
Doug, that was the
Some-
only issue, right? Was just the plan?
Let me just check with everybody here.
Sure.
Doug, any questions, concern, comments, anything? Any advice for this guy?
No, fine with me.
Okay, Deb? Joseph?
The only thing is on the brush pile, are we giving them
I would
a heads up
condition,
that said that it's likely to be conditioned they deal with it?
We have an
Right.
OC, we're gonna...
Yeah, all right.
yeah. The only other, I guess we should discuss is, what typically happens is there's an as-built survey at the end of this, which I know this has been a relatively expensive undertaking for a relatively minor project, which is a requirement of the notice of intent. I think that was discussed with the applicant previously. Are we going to require an as-built, or would we be, if they do some kind of measurement, and would we be satisfied with a engineer's certification rather than a full-on as-built, given that we have this
As
plan?
long as the letter is from an RPLS or an RPE,
Referencing this plan.
referencing the plan, certifying that an inspection took place in field.
Okay, so
Numbers
that's saving
verified.
you a step on the other end versus, it couldn't save you on the front end, but it's gonna
Yeah.
save you on the back end.
All right.
It's
Okay.
got to be done by an engineer or a surveyor, okay? All right.
So you can close and I'll draft it at the next
So
meeting.
we're gonna try to close this right now for you. If it closes, the order of conditions will be drafted for the next meeting, okay?
Okay.
Move that we close this decision within 21 days.
Motion and second to close. Any further discussion? Last call, any abutters? None to vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, and that's unanimous. Stay in touch with Jen, all right?
I will.
All right,
Thank you very much.
all right, thank you, thank you. All right. 242 no DEP number 21 High Street, RCG Civil Divine.
Yep, I have everything.
And Jen, if you'd like to go first and just bring us up to speed here, and then we'll let the applicants proceed.
This is going to be a new 51-unit residential building. Did I get that right? Behind the East Mill. It's the side with Jamie's, and if you're familiar with that.
Yep.
Along the side of the existing pond. The building itself is outside of the 50-foot no-build zone. I'm sure they will review some activity that is proposed to occur within the no-build and no-disturb zones, that some of which will require waivers, all of which is within existing sort of maintained
The old ball
lawn
fields?
area.
The old ball field area?
No, this is the other side of the street.
Okay.
Is this, just to orient myself, is this the building we just had a big repair done on with the...
Right, this is
so the
right
back's
next
up
to that big
right?
repair.
So it's affiliated,
Correct.
it's all part of that? Okay, very good. Now
Again,
we
I
all
just
know.
started reviewing the notice this week between I was away and then the holiday. Some of the this is under peer review with TEC. They have done one review, and you have a copy of that. But it hasn't gone any. Yep, you have a copy of that. It hasn't gone any further than that. So we're waiting for response comments, obviously. I did a quick review of the planting plan. There are some species in the no disturb zone which are shown as ornamental plantings, which I think should be, the no disturb zone should be planted natively, as native as possible. I understand there'll probably be ornamental things around the building. Again, that's just a quick summary of that planting plan, and we can certainly go through that. Just to point it out to the commission, because I'm sure they haven't seen the whole NOI, but there was a giant weeping willow along the pond that fell into the pond. They're asking to remove that and plant native trees. Those were 100% proposed replacements, native species. And aside from that, I think it's probably best described by the applicant.
So before they go, we have no DEP number, right?
Correct.
Okay, so we know we're not going to close tonight, so let's not
This
get
is-
into the weeds.
Also in front of the planning board, and will be reviewed with them as well.
So I can get into that. So for the record, my name is Tanya Hartford. I'm representing our CG, and I'm here with Phil Henry from Civil Design Group and Julie Van Drake, who's our wetlands specialist, who helped with put together this application. I know you know both of them
Julie
well.
worked with us for many years. Welcome back.
So this is, we are planning to build 51 residential units. This was part of a preliminary PDD that we had approved by the planning board a while back. I think it was back in about 10 years ago. So this is one of those phases. We're calling it Phase 2B. We've also submitted an application to the planning board, and we open our public hearing with them next week. So we see this as a series of reviews, and we know that we're going to be back and forth between the two boards. We also have gone to Machine Shop Village as well to talk about the design. And so that's the basic piece of it, and I'll let Phil get into the design.
I just did it twice.
So Jen, would you mind going to sheet 5? Just to orientate the commission.
Sorry, it doesn't want to move as quickly as I want to move it.
Okay. That's 4. One more.
Oop, now I'm on 6. Is that 5? Site plan 6.
One up. There we go. Okay, just to orientate everyone, this, what you're seeing here, this is the overall East Mill tract of land, and High Street is plan right, running up and down the page. And if you're familiar with the site, there's an access just to the left of Jamie's, if you will, and there's a series of parking lots that traverse towards I guess the east, back towards the pond. And there's an open field between the pond and the secondary or auxiliary parking spaces, and that's where that 51-unit apartment building is proposed. If you want, you can go back to sheet 6 now, it's zoomed in.
better to go back and do it here.
Okay.
Since it's not fully downloaded, it doesn't create quite the same issue with,
Okay. So that's the zoomed-in version. The front of the units are facing plan down, or I guess north, towards the existing garage in Prescott Street, which would be in the foreground, or background, I should say. And the rear of the units face the pond. We are largely using the existing parking lot infrastructure that exists today. There's an existing lot that currently is proposed to be restriped and repaved and regraded to largely support the units. And that parking lot totals about 58 spaces. There's actually more spaces in the existing condition. And overall, we're only creating about 4,500 square feet of non-rooftop impervious coverage. So we're obviously increasing impervious for the rooftop, but in terms of the asphalt, I just wanted to offer up just an example that we're only increasing about 4,500 square feet of impervious coverage. This area of the site gently slopes from that parking lot towards the pond, and it drops maybe 3 feet over 100, 150 feet. Because groundwater was fairly high, we picked up that grade, and that first floor elevation is about 97, so we can get some recharge for that rooftop underneath. The parking lot, which you see there, will be treated via a grass swale and forebay to plan left or east of the lot, and then that will eventually circumvent around the building. And on the grading plan, you'll see that there is an infiltration system behind the building to not only take the rooftop directly, but also infiltrate what would be considered clean runoff once it goes through the treatment train from the parking lot. We're also proposing to modify the existing walkable pedestrian area behind the building that basically straddles that 25-foot no-touch. If you look, there's a stone dust path that it's largely relieving it existing. Plan left, we're modifying it a bit, which is the more of a darker hatch, if you will, just to create some pedestrian connectivity between the parking lot and the back. There's the 50-foot no build that again kind of interweaves and straddles the rear of the structure itself, and then that 100-foot basically mirrors the front steps of that building. In total, that building is about 380 feet long by 35 feet deep. So it's a single loaded unit where your unit is accessed in the front and in the back at the ground level, obviously. And I believe it's four floors. We have received comments from TEC, from DPW, from police, and not fire yet. But we received the comments a few days ago. We consider them to be fair comments. They're minor in nature, and we've actually begun to start responding to them. But we obviously didn't want to get too far until we were in front of you guys, as well as we have planning board on December 5th as well. So that's the general overview. I'm happy to go into more specifics. That's the 10,000-foot spiel.
I just wanted to show them the planting plan so they can get a sense of what's proposed for vegetation.
Yeah, again, right out of the gate, it's just going to be very, very short, and I'm not even looking for answers at this point. I haven't even seen TEC's comments, so they maybe touched on it, maybe they didn't. But just generally speaking, stormwater management, and I don't mean water quality, clean water off the roof, collected and put into, I heard, under the building infiltration.
It's a pipe and stone system that's behind the building.
Peak attenuation also in that?
Yes.
And you're counting on your infiltration system to be part of your peak attenuation,
yes.
Or you're counting storage volume within
yes.
cisterns?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, so you're not relying strictly on groundwater infiltration as a way of deducting from your runoff. You're using storage and then slow time release.
Well, I think it goes hand in hand. So if you look at the grading plan, it's one 15-inch pipe that goes across the back of the building. There's 2 point of entries for the rooftop. It's a flat roof that's collected through a drainage system on the roof, and it's collected in there. There's not a ton of storage, because, as I said, we're only increasing the impervious coverage by just a little bit, despite the fact that it's a sizable.
Well, that's what I want to be, maybe I'm not clear on it, it sounds like maybe I'm confused. You were careful to distinguish the impervious area pavement and an impervious area roof. You've increased slightly the impervious pavement
Non-rooftop,
area,
yep.
but the rooftop is all new.
Yeah.
So peak attenuation of the increased impervious area for the parking lot is one thing.
Exactly, yes.
But your rooftop, you still also have to handle the runoff from that.
Yes, by all means. So
Not just water quality.
Yes, I guess what I'm saying, when we attacked this, we created 2 analysis points. One, the pond, because that's where everything is going, or largely everything is going. And then a section of the area that we're modifying currently drains towards High Street and gets into the existing drainage infrastructure and goes through that treatment train. We are essentially reducing that area that's going to High Street, okay, i.e. it would be redevelopment essentially, because we're not increasing the impervious area. We are increasing the impervious area going towards the pond. And all of that runoff, rooftop and non-rooftop, is either treated and recharged or just recharged, i.e. the rooftop. And there is some nominal storage, but we are relying on infiltration. That's how you get your recharge. So in summary, we feel that we meet the DEP standards for both treatment, mitigating peak flow, and recharge.
Right, that's what I think we have to flush out through the analysis and the review of the analysis and then the final permit we issue. We don't typically allow the recharge, like for, on a single-family residential house, you collect that water, get it in. We don't allow you to take that roof area and take it out of your overall subdivision calculation. We expect you to leave that in there, even though your BMP is to recharge it when the ground's capable of taking it.
And we're not taking it out.
You're not taking it out.
We're not taking it out.
That's my answer.
If you looked at our HydroCAD modeling, the areas are the same. So we're not subtracting anything. And I think once you
You were distinguishing the areas just as by way of comparison, not for analysis. You're not distinguishing them in
exactly,
analysis.
It's good practice to divide them up versus the treatment train that they're going in, if they're flowing over grass, if they're going to a direct entry. So we take all that into consideration. But if you look at it, we're not subtracting anything by any means. We are comparing apples to apples.
Okay.
So, and I think TEC largely, I don't want to speak for them, I think they largely agree with our methodology. They do have things that they would like us to either show or clarify or modify, and we're happy to do that. But I think overall, I think they're in agreement with our philosophy as well.
So they are infiltrating in the 50-foot, which is not allowed under DEP stormwater standards, infiltration within 50 feet of a wetland. So
I thought it was 50 feet of a surface water.
No, it's of a wetland. If it's an ORW, there's no infiltration within 100 feet.
Okay.
So that could be an issue.
Well,
I'm not gonna
from a DEP standpoint, I don't, the bylaw, because Lisa Eggleston back in the day always used to point out, so when we rewrote the stormwater regulations to be consistent with the stormwater bylaw, there is some leeway for putting it in the 50 feet if it makes sense from a, you don't have soils anywhere but the 50, or if there's some reason to have it there, but, a grading issue, you can't get it to drain anywhere else. I don't really know, because we just see it where it's at. So.
Sure.
And I think TEC did point that out in their comments.
I'm not going to anticipate the fire department's comment, but prior to you advancing this project as far as you had sit-downs with various departments ahead of time. Was there, might there be a surprise the fire department wants full perimeter access and therefore the whole backyard area changes on this? Or?
I can tell you they won't want full perimeter access. They may want some turnaround capability in the parking lot. I've never seen them ask for full perimeter access on any of the structures that have been constructed, including the new one we just approved down on Osgood Street on the Fregetta Farm. They didn't require full perimeter access around all of those structures. Okay. So I'm not anticipating, I guess, I'm saying about that.
Well, I'm all set.
I think it's also important to note that when we talk about infiltration, from a practical standpoint, there is an extended lawn area right now, so that you're essentially getting infiltration just by the lawn area. We're just accelerating that recharge component by allowing direct discharge through a pipe and stone. We could essentially let it go right onto the grass and have that infiltrate, but we just don't think that's a good practice from a convenience standpoint and people walking and so on and so forth. So that infiltration area just straddles that 50-foot line.
Do you have the soils and distance to groundwater to make that work?
Yep. Yeah, we did test pits. Yep, we did test pits, and it's high, and that's why we had to pick the site up to get it to work, and that's why it's a very shallow, simple system. But I guess in practice, I've always had it 50 feet away from a surface water, a body of water.
So, I guess I have questions, but they might be more like comments. I'm looking at the TEC letter that is dated November 27th. I think you probably have a copy of the letter.
Yeah.
And there are, starting at comment number 22, there are numerous comments made by TEC with respect to your stormwater management modeling and proposal. And my quick read of it indicates there's a lot of disagreements between TEC and your proposed. Have you addressed those, or are you addressing?
I do not take it as they are disagreeing with our overall methodology, and I'm confident that we could address all these comments.
Well, I mean, it sounds to me like they are. It sounds to be like the proposal to infiltrate stormwater back into the groundwater is out of compliance with DEP's guidelines.
Which number?
That would be number 22.
22.
22 sounds like they disagree with your proposal. 23 is asking you to clearly describe what the project, how it's classified, and then when you move down the list from there, there's numerous comments, including comment number 33, which calls out the volume.
Yeah.
So
Those are things I raised without even reading this.
those are things that it's likely that this commission is going to want to see you comply with the comments of the reviewer.
Yeah, and I'm saying we are going to comply with that.
So you're going to be able to meet or exceed those.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'm saying it because we're going to be looking for that. That's something we're going to be looking for. So rather than ambushing you down the road.
Yeah, and I'm not looking to say that we're going to be argumentative. I think most of the comments are clarification points. Some are plan modifications, but I think all are addressable.
Okay. Are there any abutters here that have any questions? Okay, great. If you want to just step up to the podium, just give us your name and address and ask your question.
Linda Fuca, 4 East Water Street, North Andover.
Hi.
There's a lot of wildlife down there, and I've been there for 42 years. And over the past 5 years, there's been a lot of cutting down of there were raspberry bushes all along down there.
Yeah.
And just when they built the high school, the kids going through, they built a bridge. A bridge was built down there for people to do a walk. And they cut a lot of brush down on there, and in the past 2 years, there's been a lot of tree cutting down there, and I don't know who approved that, or...
I don't know where to begin to ask that question. There has been a lot of activity down there under permit. They've been in front of us for a couple of years now with a lot of permitted activities with respect to stormwater, and they had a failure of a pipe down there, and there has been a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, they drained the water and everything.
Yeah, well, they had to do a big repair. They did do a big repair, and we provided permits for them to do that. Now, as far as tree cutting goes, it's possible. I don't recall exactly the permit.
I think the old permit might have had some tree removal.
There's been a lot of changes down there.
And let's be clear, too. I mean, people are allowed to maintain their properties so long as they're doing it lawfully.
Right.
And it may not require permits from us. They may be just doing regular maintenance out in that area that's been done for years. But if you could point out to Jen's office, and she could send someone out to look at that area, maybe what they're doing is a problem. Maybe what they're doing is perfectly legit. Maybe it's something that they've got previously permitted, but I don't think we have enough information.
The only issue we've had is the plantings in the no disturb zone on the opposite side of this pond have a problem with either maintenance, maintaining them. So the buffer over there is not well established, and it's been an ongoing issue that we've discussed.
Can you say opposite side of this pond, meaning the Water Street side?
The Water Street side.
Okay.
But as to tree cutting, I mean, I'm there pretty frequently, and even the recent trees that fell down, they've left fallen in the pond, just waiting to talk about how to deal with them.
So maybe if there's a particular spot that you're concerned about, you could either photograph it or just call the office and have Jen send, we have a field inspector she could send down to look at it. It might not even be on their site, I don't know.
There's a lot of wildlife down there,
Yeah.
though, too, that, we have geese that are always down there. We have raccoons and skunks and
I suspect the
beavers.
geese aren't moving. They're not even migrating anymore. They're so happy here.
But, I mean, I hate to see this land disturbed when you see all the birds and everything, There's just so much wildlife down there, and
Well,
keep building on it.
You're submitting a planting plan to us, right? So they're going to submit a planting plan as part of this project, and Jennifer's going to review the planting plan, so she can keep your comments in mind when she reviews it, to
I would
make
say
sure that there's...
the current land doesn't hold any wildlife habitat value in that it's all just mowed lawn.
Well, geese like that.
Yeah, they do like that. I'm not really sure they're the beneficial habitat, species, but certainly a planting plan in the buffer zone, which they've proposed, will enhance, the types of cover and food available for wildlife, and hopefully I anticipate it'll be more successful than the other side, given the ability to, the buffer over on the other side of the pond is much nicer than that steep, almost cut side on the Water Street side. So I think there's a lot more chance of success on this side of the pond for some nice things to grow versus the other side, which is pretty compacted and the soils aren't good. And Julie, their environmental person, was the one who tried to get, I can't even tell you how many rounds of things to grow there. It just doesn't seem to want to take. So unfortunately, I think that side of the pond doesn't have quite the appeal that maybe the other side will, hopefully.
If you see something happening that you got a question on, just call down to the office. But I know they have an environmental person working for them that's going to put together the plan and everything, so I think it'll be all right. I'm sure your critters aren't going anywhere. Sir, would you like to?
No, I'm good there.
You're all good? Any other abutters want to ask any questions? Okay, so one abutter. Any other questions? Jen, what do you want to? I know we don't have a DEP.
We need to continue for lots of reasons.
Next meeting, or?
I guess there's one other item that we would like to discuss based on
drainage,
our meeting yesterday. Can you go to the drainage plan?
Is that 5 again?
Yeah, 6 right
The
there, yeah.
6.
And maybe exactly. So for years, there's been there's a pipe on that discharges onto the property from Walker Road, and it's that pipe right. I don't know if you can see it's plan left 12-inch RCP
Right here.
coming from Walker Road, and over the years it appears that the flow has increased, and obviously the grade, you can see the grade there. It drops probably 6 feet initially, and then it goes gradually over the lawn, eventually to the pond. Again, over the years, it has eroded a section of the lawn area and the stone dust area where people walk. So that is something that we've been trying to address over the years. And now that the fact is that there's going to be a potential development back here, we'd really like to come up with a long-term solution. And one of the solutions that we wanted to explore with the commission, and I'm going to come at you from a practical standpoint, and that is make a hard connection from that Walker Road pipe. There's an existing drain pipe right there that is actually in pretty good condition. It's a 12-inch RCP. It was actually flowing a little bit yesterday, very, very little. I suspect that it's taking groundwater because groundwater is so high. We tried to video that pipe from the downstream end up, and it went about 35 feet in and it got blocked. We suspect that it's a tree root or something, and we tried to jet it, and we just could not block it. And as you know, you can locate where that camera is from the field or from above ground. And it's about 10 feet or so within the 25-foot no-touch. So it's about where that D is in that pipe. We think it's, from a practical standpoint, capture that Walker Road pipe, bring it onto our site, introduce a BMP, whether it be a deep sump manhole or sediment forebay, something to settle it out, something that we can access that's on our property, that we can clean it, and then discharge it using that existing pipe. Knowing that it's within the 25-foot, it would be temporary disturbance. That currently that area is largely, it's just grass.
So to get from point A to point B, would that be something that's permanently under the new building?
No, we would circumvent it around, and in doing so, it probably, again, makes sense from a practical standpoint to tie our overflow system of the infiltration system into that pipe as well, so that it reduces any sense of, or any potential for eroding above grade. It wouldn't change anything hydrologically or hydraulically. It would just be a practical way of getting where the water is going to go anyway.
My concerns are the Walker Road drainage is largely untreated, and it's going to discharge directly to the pond. So we did discuss various treatment methods. I don't think a storm scepter alone would be appropriate, so we discussed BMPs that maybe they could put something above ground. And then, right, that was exactly what we discussed. The problem is they don't own the land over there.
Oh, all right.
Basically, that limit of work is that dark line that's very close to their existing stormwater.
Yeah, our property line is the limit of work line.
So
Just
that
poor grammar, right?
And which way,
You mean,
water's
the property
coming,
line shall be the limit of
Water's
water.
water's
going.
coming to you or going the off?
coming
It's
to them.
going, yeah, so if that building were to get constructed and we wouldn't do anything, that water is going to go right by the left side of that building as you're
It's
looking at
coming
that.
from Walker.
Coming from Walker,
From
going to the
Walker.
pond, yep.
There's a lot of pictures in the NOI that follow the pipes on
Whose property is that?
It's National
National
Grids.
Grid.
It's National Grids. And then Walker Road, I guess depending on who you ask, is the town's, and it's a private road, but
Why is it always grid?
Anybody else?
Why is it always grid? Anybody else in the world? I say, my humble opinion would be put a proposal together
okay.
and see what it does. Have an alternatives analysis, talk to grid.
Sure. Yeah, we had described it in the notice of intent. We just didn't want to come out and show something without at least having an open discussion about it. But yeah, we're happy to put something
Oh, no,
together.
we'd look at it. We'd look at it. I mean, anything, it might even be a level spreader, I don't know. But,
Yeah, I like to eliminate the point source as opposed to make use of it. And if we can't eliminate the one that's behind it, I'd really want to look at, something to do up in that back corner by your path area and find a way to gradually discharge it across the level spreader before it kind of is a
do
point.
some alternatives.
But again, without looking at grades or anything to really understand if that's possible, I don't know.
Yeah, I think, well, we can look at introducing something above grade, a level spreader, but it would eventually have to get piped in, because the whole purpose of that is to not have it discharge over land. So we can have it discharge out of Walker into like a level spreader, plunge pool, and then pick it up, treat it, pick it up, and then direct discharge.
I think the problem in creating, I think what Joe's asking is, A, could you daylight that pipe before, most often if you can, and I think we did this on the West Mill side, is the pipes, even though you tied into the existing, they daylight before, above the pond, basically. And I think on the West Mill side, created some kind of basin at the outlet, and then that overflows into the pond. I'm thinking of the one that was constructed like right off the edge of pavement, so that you would have alteration in the no disturb zone potentially, but you would eliminate the point source discharge.
Yeah, we can certainly look at that. I suspect that because it's fairly level as you approach the pond, that we're going to have to go in and grab into the wetland and create a swale back just to achieve the grade. But we can look at that. I think that would be more intrusive than what I guess at least I have in my mind, but
The
We
issues-
can put some options
The
together.
other options would be, I mean, because if you have spills, then, I mean, it's not that point source discharges don't exist all over town, but if you can improve it, I mean, you don't want something to happen on Walker Road or something to happen in your parking lot and have no recourse, to get it back. I don't know if there's shut-offs on the West Mill side that were required in some of those structures. I can't remember, no. Lisa was a big fan of the shut-off of.
I think you should just put some ideas together,
Okay.
see which one Jennifer likes best.
Well, it's not me. I think it's going to be TEC's, review too, and how it complies.
Well, it's worth looking at. They're coming back anyway.
So we have a motion I'm making a motion to continue.
Well, everybody good? Everybody good here? Because we're going to continue. All right.
Do you want to continue to the next meeting, or you'll have met with the planning
We
board?
have one
Well,
meeting,
so I-
we have only one meeting in December. That's all
So
we
it might
have.
be helpful, we could come back in December, we could, having feedback from the planning board, and we could also respond
You
to
could
some of
always
the TE.
continue if you don't want to come to that one.
Okay.
To the December meeting. Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. See you all in December. All right, enforcement orders. 981 Johnson Street, continued from November 15th.
If you recall, this was the homeowner who, when he proposed to rebuild his deck, discovered that he had a retaining wall on his property that was not
How are you?
his problem, but became his problem, unfortunately.
Just to refresh my memory, this is the one where we suggested the possibility of removing
grading out the
and grading
backyard
it. Okay. I
and
just want to make
removing
sure
the
I'm
wall.
thinking of the right place.
So the proposal in front of you is now to do just that. It's also to provide the grading, remove the wall, and put a fence up at the top of that whole situation that would serve as the new no disturbance zone. They have also, outside because an engineer did the plan outside of proposing a planting plan, they agreed that we could propose a list of species that they could plant on the slope, and
Sure.
they would choose.
Okay.
Do you have anything to add?
No, I don't. I mean, I think this is consistent with one of the options we discussed last time. I don't remember if we discussed the fence at the top last time. We'd really like to have that as a safety measure and as a measure to keep stuff from getting into the onto the new plantings or the wetlands.
What would the fence connect to at either end, or it'd just be enough to go across your backyard, basically?
I think just across, there's nothing existing there that it would. There's no sort of existing fence on the sides that it would hook into or anything like that.
Joe?
I think this is pretty much what we talked about the last time we was before us. I'm okay.
Good. Mr. Saul?
No, no questions.
You like it?
Yeah, it's fine. Grade down.
Any comments, Jen?
No, it would just be, we would issue a new enforcement order
Yeah.
that basically permitted you to do the work.
We'll give you an amended order
Okay.
describing exactly what you're asking for.
I guess the only thing would be the time frame in which you would like to be able to do it in.
We'd like to get it done. I'm not sure. We haven't
Well, if we
engaged.
give you a year to do it,
Oh, yeah.
is that adequate?
A year from the date we issue the permit?
Or
Yes,
sooner. I mean,
absolutely.
but, you know,
Yeah, I mean, it's just,
You don't want to start tomorrow.
No,
Or you could start tomorrow. It's up to you.
a year would be great. I would anticipate us being done well in advance of that deadline.
the only other thing that the order would say is that generally 1 year from the date of the plantings, you have to provide us with some kind of report saying everything's still alive, or we had to replace, but generally we want to see 1 year from the date you do planting that everything is survived.
Evidence of life.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right.
It was 70% of it. 70%.
75%, yes.
75.
Do I hear a motion?
So it's a motion to issue a new enforcement order requiring everything you just discussed.
So moved.
Second?
Motion is second. Discussion. None. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
You're all set. 440 Great Pond Road, request to continue to January 10th, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous.
You didn't even get to read the recommendation.
All right.
He nudged me and I didn't even notice.
All right. I think before we move on to all the other stuff on here, let's hear Mr. Zarico. He requested to be put on the agenda.
So Mr. Zarico was not on the original agenda. His matter is not a public hearing, so at the discretion of the commission, he can be added. What he's here to discuss was discussed with you at the prior hearing when he proposed the house on Nutmeg. There was the ability to use a common drive, which we weren't sure. The planning board only allows 2 houses to be off a common drive. In this case, there were 2 houses on the common drive, so this new house, it was anticipated, would not be allowed to be on the common drive. Lo and behold, in reviewing the plans, this lot was allowed to be accessed off of the common drive.
My memory is scary. That's exactly what I said.
I think you said that.
Like 20 years ago.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's
or
exactly
maybe
right.
longer, maybe 25. And Doug, you brought this up, if I can just jump in, if you'll give me
I feel vindicated.
the grace of a couple of seconds. Doug, you brought this up and asked, and I said, if there's a way of doing it and I'm allowed, then I will do it. We delayed this construction, we delayed the process. We went through a lot of stuff here to get it to this point, including redesigning the house because of the relocation of the access point. So we did what we were asked, and the result, as you can see, is a pretty substantial reduction in the impervious areas, and maybe, in fact, a better-looking house, actually, when all is said and done.
I guess, Tom, the only thing that I think the commission needs, and in discussing this with the chair who couldn't be here this evening, is you will get us a new full-blown plan of this site, right? Like.
Yeah, for sure. In fact,
We're approving the modification based on sort of a sketch.
A sketch, yeah.
But you're going to do a new plan so that we can have a record plan for
Yes,
the file.
I actually got that from Jack today, from Jack
Okay.
Sullivan. I just didn't want to confuse anything by bringing in another piece of paper that nobody had seen. So I do have that. I can email it to you when I leave
Right,
here.
so if you're inclined to, I would actually like a full-size copy, because when we go into the field, it's a heck of a lot
Yeah.
easier to figure out what's going on without putting on glasses.
Yep, no, I get it.
So
I get it.
Is to accept the modification and to record the plan yet to be submitted to be the record.
I would issue the modification when in receipt of the full-blown plan, so that when it gets recorded, we'll have a plan date on the modification that says this is the new plan of record.
There you go. What a great motion. So moved.
Motion and second, discussion. None. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous.
Thank you very much for hearing this
All
tonight.
right, thank you for
Appreciate
hanging
it.
around.
Checking that out.
Thanks for making us part of your day.
Is that like a new motto or something? Thanks for making us part of your day.
242-1713, a COC request for 127 Vest Way.
So Kale went out to the site today, and there's still a portion of the site adjacent to the driveway that was vegetated like around November 15th, or much later than the leach field area. The leach field area is somewhat stabilized. There's erosion controls still in, and there's a portion of the site that's not vegetated. In my opinion, or in our general work with the commission, that you don't allow COCs to issue until the site's stabilized.
So it's not ready?
It's not ready, and we recommend at this point in the year continuing until April, the second meeting being April 25th.
So why don't we continue it on their behalf?
Is he
Instead
looking
of-
for a bond reduction or of any sort, or he's looking for
They can still
full-blown?
request a bond release if that's what they want. Kale seemed to be under the impression that there was no, they're not selling the house, and this is the reason why. I think they had a failed septic system.
Right.
I think instead of voting on it, if you think it's not ready, why don't we just continue it and let it get ready?
Well, you can continue to April 25th. This is not a public hearing matter. It doesn't need to be noticed one meeting to the next. It just gives us a date certain to put it on the agenda, and if
25th
they
's
want
the
to
real
come
date.
back earlier, they can request to do so.
Move that we continue to April 25th.
Motion and a second. Discussion, none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous.
127 Tucker Farm Road, we are just waiting for the contractor to, I gave him the wetland markers at the pre-construction meeting and showed him where to hang them, and they're still not up. So,
That's the septic system at the end of the road?
at the end of Tucker Farm. Yeah, the septic system's all vegetated, all done completely. They cleaned out the wetland. There's a pile of debris that got pulled out, some stone.
Yeah.
It's just, we need the contractor to come back and finish the job. Currently, I think he's at 62 Farnham, so I know where to find him. But
So what are we doing here? Where are we going?
Just continue the next meeting, I'll
So
get it
moved.
done.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous. 2421661, COC request for 95 Lyons Way.
So at the last meeting, you discussed this, there were some plantings missing at the top of the head wall. At the top of the head wall are some ornamental plantings that have always been there. I do vaguely remember a discussion with the monitor at the time that they would shift the plantings left because, so basically, I'd say we give it a COC regardless of the fact that they didn't put the no disturb, they put no disturb markers, but no disturb plantings at the top of the head wall. There's ornamental plantings there already. I have photos.
Are you satisfied with the stability of the project?
100%.
100%. I heard 100%. I'm looking for a motion.
Move that we grant the order of conditions, the certificate of compliance for 242-1661, 95 Lyons Way.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that is unanimous. COC request granted. 242-158, a partial certificate request for 450 Bear Hill Road.
I'm just going to hand you the map of where this is because you probably have more familiarity with it than I do. It's not part of what is jurisdictional about Bear Hill. It's at the top of the hill. And
Sure.
He owns 3 lots. This is...
Because what was conditioned on Bear Hill Road at the time was the road.
Right. And so this wasn't one that was required, but like the pool's on a lot, the
Yeah.
house is on a lot, and then there's a vacant lot.
Yeah.
I say the COC should probably just refer to them as,
Just the address.
No,
as what was
lots.
requested in the COC, which is lots 75, 76, and 77.
Okay?
So moved.
Second.
You have a motion and a second to issue as recommended. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that is unanimous. Granted.
Now, we've been doing this for the better part of a quarter of a century,
Right.
piecemeal approval, mostly administrative. I mean, as far as we're concerned, Bear Hill is,
Yeah, it's
the
done.
subdivision is done.
The project the problem with Bear Hill, it doesn't have, the overall order doesn't, 158 does not have an overall certificate of compliance. If anyone actually applied for one, I don't know what plan we would compare it against, because the plan of the day is like,
You'd have to go back.
doesn't even have the wetlands
You'd have
on
to go
it.
back to
I guess my point is, we're
1983.
eventually going to issue the last partial
Right.
on the last lot, and that all by itself doesn't designate it fully compliant.
Yeah, I'm sure you don't want to hear this, but Cale also noted that the amended order of conditions that was issued for Bear Hill is not the one that's actually on the Registry of Deeds.
Yeah. Listen, if this is
It's
a
a mess.
discussion
This
for
is a
another
mess.
day, because
It's a mess.
90% of what happened up there happened in bankruptcy.
Back in the days of the Wild West.
That was in the late 70s and early 80s, and there was a gentleman who I'm not going to name who was the primary developer up there, and bankruptcy was part of his day, and this thing was finished on a deed in lieu from the old Arlington Trust Company.
Yeah.
So you're not going to find it. It isn't going to. It's not possible. So with that said, 2421709. I don't know what kind of request this is for 75 Nutmeg.
Oh, that's the modification that you just did for town.
We just did it. We did that.
Yep.
Sorry, I didn't.
So now we're on to
Public
the-
lands preservation discussion.
So back in the day, the North Andover Conservation Commission was on the Public Land Preservation Act supporters list. They are amending that or proposing to amend that legislation. Joe, maybe you've heard of this. You know, there's been a lot of talk when someone takes something like Foster Farm that was protected under Article 97 and converts it to another use. You have to provide land that is, you know, in the same, something
Character use.
comparable, right. All of that is sort of vague in the current Article 97 legislation. They're attempting to make it tighter so that those kinds of things, that they're not easily happening, that you don't, you know, turn your Foster Farm into ball fields or...
Soccer fields. Soccer fields?
Right.
Just to go out on the
Just
limb?
to-
But when we acquired it under 97, we were careful how we separated the lots.
Right, and I think in the deed for Foster Farm, the protection for open space is listed. But as you know, there are 3 parcels out there. One is what was known as Renshaw Hill, which is across the street at Best Way, the piece with Mosquito Brook, and then the piece that was given for a new elementary school. So the protections out there are different. But that's just one example of an Article 97 land. I guess the short is, do you want to keep your name on the support list? I would think you
Yes,
would. so.
Yeah.
I will-
Well, we'll poll the commission. Doug?
I have no Senator Elkins.
Yea or nay?
Did you say no?
No, I would say, yeah, I mean, I think they're just trying to tighten up the language so conversions aren't as
Okay.
feasible.
I don't have any problems with it.
Doug votes yea.
Yes.
Yea.
Yes.
Unanimous.
I will keep us on the list.
On the list. All right, I need a motion to adjourn.
Well, no, we have one decision, Kelsey
Come on,
Lanes.
oh, come on, no
I
adjournment.
know, I
All
tried.
right,
Up to it, that's a privileged motion.
come on.
Look, at 5 minutes, you could be done in 8:30.
All right, let's
For
get-
some reason, it stapled the thing in 2 pieces, so.
All right.
Kelly does. That was my one.
Does it matter, really?
Everything matters.
Yeah, okay. You have 60 seconds, Jen.
Yep. So, I guess in the talk about mature trees, I just put in the applicant owner shall identify mature deciduous trees to be preserved prior to the start of site construction. These trees shall be marked with flagging tape and reviewed by the Conservation Department. Honestly, a lot of them are out of jurisdiction, so we were just trying to get them to keep some buffers between what is a large open space
So
tract. and-
legitimate concern during the hearing was the relevance of whether there were test pits or not. We found out that were shown on the plan, but you don't have the results, so.
That's another
Are you
condition.
asking for them?
That's another condition.
That's condition number 55.
So 51 is the condition to put in the stone wall at the 50-foot no disturb
Okay.
and mark it, and
Yep.
then mark mature trees on the rest of the property at the no disturb.
Yep.
So 54 is requiring them to maintain in perpetuity. 55 is the language taken from the planning board decision, but I think it needs to be revised to say that we need the test pit data or new test pits, right?
You could just add that to the end of the sentence.
Well, I think I'm going to start it out with test pit data from the existing soil test pits
Shall
be
be-
No, I
provided.
think,
Or test pits shall be conducted demonstrating.
no, I think you take out the beginning of the sentence, the capital A minimum of 2 feet of soil shall exist between the bottom of the rain garden and the maximum high groundwater. That's the condition. In the record, it'll be the test pits, but the condition is you really want to have 2 feet, period.
Okay, so a minimum of 2 feet of soil between the bottom and blah,
agree.
blah. Soil
I
shall be
agree. That's
documented to prove that
good
this
point.
is suited for infiltration. So prior test pit data, and then as Al said, add at the end, that the test pit data should be provided.
Joe suggested that in the first sentence.
I got what Joe said, so
Okay.
eliminate the first part and start with a capital A, minimum of 2 feet.
Yeah.
And then the second sentence is fine.
Yep.
Soil
Right.
shall be documented.
And then you can, and then
Soil tests taken.
They're on the planning board
you could
plan.
just add, and you could just ask that the data be incorporated. That's all.
Data be provided.
Provided and incorporated by reference.
Okay.
And that's sufficient.
But you have that under, that's a pre-construction? It is,
No,
right?
that's just the stormwater management condition.
That probably should,
So move to
Well,
pre-construction.
they determined the
well, if you're concerned about the test pit
groundwater level
data,
that should be done in the spring.
I think the condition for stormwater is in the right place, but if you're concerned about receiving the data, that should be pre-construction. The test pit data be provided.
Okay. I will put a condition in the pre. So for during construction, I do have that, everything for as-built foundations and staking of foundations applies to Lot 2 only. Lot 3 is the house is out of the buffer zone, just as a note. I upped the use of fertilizers to outside of the 50-foot because this is a vernal pool habitat, so that's the only other change to the standard conditions. I don't know why this thing printed the way it did, but, and regular as-built requirements, et cetera. And at the end of it will be a copy of the O&M maintenance thing that he provided us.
So the O&M plan, I mean, I'm kind of torn on that, I didn't get into it in the meeting, the public hearing part of it. The 2 lots, residential, really exempt from stormwater. The stormwater
Not under
rain gardens
subdivision.
were- What?
Not under subdivision, which this was filed for.
That's why it was because of part of the planning board
Right.
decision, all right, that's why we went to that extent.
But I always say, when things are in the planning board decision, they don't have enforcement teeth, so it's always better to put
restate
that
it,
requirement
yeah.
in here.
Good. Move that we adopt as amended.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. There is none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
Motion to adjourn, if that's okay, Jen.
Yep.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We stand adjourned. Thank you.